Munchkins and viewers alike, it's me Munchie, and today's discussion is all gonna be about burnout from pet care. Now, you guys probably don't even know what's going on in the pet community, but if you are aware, the pet community does have a bunch of people who have a bunch of animals, and because of this, I have seen changes within the community and changes within pet care that I am starting to see people get very burnt out from, and I want to share with you my story about possibly me getting burnt out during a certain time in my rescuing lifetime when I had a bunch of litter intakes back to back to back. That got very overwhelming very quickly, but I want to talk about the thing that doesn't get really talked about much, and that's burnout. But first, there's a little hammy that wants your attention today, and her name is Star. So Star here has been very active during this time, and so she kind of wanted to come out and say hi to you guys. But you guys might be wondering, wait a minute, is that the Star from the November Star intake story? Has she been with you for this long? Yes, and this is gonna just be a little shout out to her because she's been within our care for, I wanna say, nearly 10 months now. She is the longest foster hamster within our rescue who desperately needs a home. Because we've had her for almost a year now, she would be this November a year and a half years old, since we speculated she was at least 6 months old when we got her. So she is going in this week for a checkup because we are a little bit concerned with her, because hamsters, they tend to show signs, and they might just be simple signs and some of them might be concerning, but to me she's been bloating a lot lately and that has raised concern for me, so you always got to be careful. But Star here is the most energetic little girl you can think about. Star here constantly smells like she wants something, and she wants something very badly, so she's always very active and she's always moving around. But she is such a tame little girl. She's very handleable. You can give her treats. She doesn't mind if you pick her up and do a health check. I'm taking a look at her. Everything looks good. I can pet her. She is frantic right now because she wants to get out and start running around. But usually for Star, we give her extra time just because she just needs that extra time outside of her cage. Otherwise, she just starts chewing at her enclosure, and she's currently in a 40-gallon breeder. But if someone were to adopt this cute little girl, she would need something like an IKEA detox. So Star here is an escape artist, just because we had a few cage errors before, and now that's been all taken care of. And then I did test her as kind of a hamster guinea pig on a new enclosure to see that if she can escape it. And it turns out she could slip right through the bars, so she kind of had a planned escape just so we can test it out to make sure one of the donated enclosures was safe. Turns out it's not, and we still need to DIY the lid to make sure that it is suitable, and then we can start putting hamsters in there. But just a little shout out to Star here because we love her dearly and we want her to get a good home before her retirement here with us. We don't like holding on to these guys all the time because we want them to have a chance at another life. However, if they do pass away in our care, they were at least provided correct care, especially since a lot of these guys who end up passing come from really bad, neglectful situations. So rest in peace to those who have passed that have come from bad care and we were not able to fully help them. So a lot of you might understand what the terms burnt out means. If not, I'll just give you a scenario. When you get burnt out, that means you are straining yourself, you're putting too much pressure on yourself, you're doing something maybe routine-like that is causing you stress, causing you to just not put a lot of heart and soul into what you're doing, and causing you to completely burn out. Unfortunately, I have started to see this among myself, and I feel like I'm starting to see it in others, especially other people that I'm watching, to the point where it's no longer fun. That's my definition of it, where it starts to become tedious, where it starts to become lackluster. You start losing desire in what you're doing, especially when it becomes a routine and you're always used to this routine. And if for whatever reason your mental stability starts to decline, then it becomes a very daunting task that you have to ask yourself, why do you keep doing this? Or how come you're not happy? It pretty much affects your psyche when you get burnt out, and you may see it coming, especially with pet care, or you may not. For me, I knew since I was becoming a rescue, there is rescue burnout, where people are constantly rescuing and fostering. And in the foster groups that I was in when I was fostering cats, they talk all the time about burnout because it's such a big commitment to be constantly intaking these animals or fostering these animals. And if you don't give yourself a mental break, then you explode or you just plop down. There has been, unfortunately, suicides because of this burnout, because it's such a lot of strain on your mental capacity that it just feels like you're hopeless, you're stuck, you're in a bad situation. But there's so many homeless animals out there that need help, but everybody is relying on you to fix it. That's also another thing where I really do wish I can talk to more people and maybe make a video in the future about the strains of just being a part of a rescue, a shelter, fostering, and things like that. I mean, I kind of am now, but I want to talk to people who have been feeling those terrible thoughts and have thought about committing suicide or things like that, to bring awareness to you guys. But burnout is serious, it really is. So please make sure to give yourself limitations, to give yourself breaks, because this stuff does get very dark. Now, here in the YouTube pet community, there is people who are very vast and well known in different species of animals, and they have different species. And there are people out there that you might be influenced by, especially since I see that I influence you guys too, to constantly rescue, foster, or keep intaking. And that can lead down the road to, I won't say hoarding, because hoarding is a very mental and negative situation, whereas it's not impulsively, but it kind of is too, where you're like, I want to help out that animal without thinking it further through, even though it's a positivity that you're helping them out. If you don't know about how long you're going to have the animal for, or the funds for it for the long haul, you might actually just be putting the animal more at risk. And so there's just this big debate of how do you accumulate animals, how do you get them into your life, and then how do you manage that? So for me, you guys know that I take in a lot of animals, but I also rehome them, and I have set limitations to how many I can care for in my rescue. And when it comes to me personally, for my personal pets, I have now limited to not taking a single personal pet. For a while, there has been talks of taking in a hamster with one of my ethical breeders, just because I want to help document and support this breeder and her bloodlines, as well as to see how the animal grows. Kind of reminds me a little bit about Crackle from Ginger's litter, because I wanted to see how Crackle would do, knowing his backstory and how malnourished he was when he came originally with his mom and siblings to our rescue, where unfortunately we did lose two after they had been rehomed due to underdeveloped organs and their body being stunted. Here in the community, you guys might be influenced to take on a whole lot of animals because of what you see. And that's also another reason why I don't just make showing all my pets video, because I don't want to persuade anybody out there to constantly be doing what other people are doing. And there has been disclaimers in those types of videos too about, hey, even though I have the responsibility, the funds, the space for these animals, doesn't mean you do. And that's where some people, they just jump on board without knowing too much about the work that goes into all of this. So it is a lot of work. And for me personally, let me tell you about when I did the back-to-back litter intake of all of those Syrian hamsters. It first started with the 6 hamster adult intake, where I did take them in, and then I got them quarantined for a bit. There were some medical issues with Pappy, but I was able to rehome them, and I rehomed them over a course of several months. So it wasn't all at once. But during that time, right afterwards, it was Ginger's litter, and I saved 7 hamsters, including Ginger herself that day. And I had a bunch of babies that were able to stay together for a little bit, and then I had to separate them all, give them their own enclosures, and then I had to work with them on top of a previously intaken litter that was adults at least, but babies are so rambunctious, they're going to require a lot of space very soon. You got to provide them a lot of nutrition, which a lot of people did not understand since they were so malnourished. I was constantly feeding them veggies and fruits, well, not so much fruits, but veggies, and I was giving them a bunch of protein, and that was very time consuming and very costly too, because I had to buy a bunch of different bins to place them all in that were of appropriate sizes. Some were in temporaries until they got a little bit bigger, where I definitely had to get them a bigger setup. But in that situation where it was an emergency, they were being fed bread and cookies, I had to do it. And I had so much hamsters, it was just so overwhelming. But then, after afterwards, right after Ginger's litter, we had the 10-liter intake that I actually waited a very long time to tell you guys about. But when that happened, I was like, oh my God, 10 setups, 10 wheels. Oh, the wheels. Oh, that was the fun part. I had to go out and buy like 10 more wheels. And then after that, once they grew up even bigger than the 7-inch wheels, which were starting wheels for like a tiny litter like that, I then had to buy bigger wheels on top of that. So technically right now in my closet, I have about, I want to say maybe 8, 9, or 10, I don't know how many are left, of these 7-inch flying saucer wheels that I had during that time frame. Oh my dear goodness, that was a lot of work, and I was getting burnt out. I did not understand fully how much commitment and time it would go into having them all. Thankfully, the 10 hamster litter got snatched up really quickly. They all got adopted way faster than, I want to say, Ginger's litter or the Syrian intake, but at the same time, that was still kind of the start of my rescue. And so afterwards, I started to take in even more hamsters, and during a time, I had at least 24 or 25 hamsters total. That's total, that's not all within my rescue. If I remember correctly, I was also lumping my personal hamsters in there as well. But at one period, I did have about 24 or 25 hamsters. And for me, I almost got burnt out because whenever I would take on emails and inquiries for them, and then people were either wasting my time, ghosted, meaning they flaked out, they backed out without telling me, they seemed promising, or maybe they didn't seem promising. Then when they inquired, they just flew away. There has been so much of my time and effort going into these guys that you guys out there don't even know. Just the time and effort to always do deep cleans, do spot cleans weekly, to change out their water, to actually interact with each and every one of them, wash your hands or sanitize your hands, guys, in between touchings. Having so many in that room all at once, and I had to interact with them all, that took hours. That, I want to say, especially when you have to bring them outside of their cage, because that should be a requirement to have them outside their cage time, that almost burnt me out because I was like, wow, I am starting to not be able to enjoy myself outside of my life. And this is a very big problem that I'm starting to see some of my fans do, where they said, hey, I've intaken this, and then, oh, but there was this one that I really had to rescue, and but this one, but this one. But guys, make sure that you understand, if you constantly are intaking, you don't know until further down the road how that's gonna affect you. You may accidentally be causing yourself a burnout, and I do not wish that upon anybody who has multiple animals right now. Please think about the burnout, because once you're really down low and you're not in a good place and you feel like you can't accomplish anything in life, and or if you feel like you can't be moving, and or you feel like time is moving faster, because that's what's been happening with me lately. I've been feeling like my time is not being well spent, even though I am reassured that it is. I just feel like I used to get stuff done very quickly, and now I can barely spend enough time for myself. So that's my burnout, and I want to just let you guys know, when you take on so many animals, that's also another thing that could burn you out. So a few things to prevent that. Like I said, limitations. Say to yourself, okay, I can only, if I am rescuing, if I am fostering, if I want to adopt an animal, I'm only taking this species of animal because that's what I currently have and I can easily provide. Because right now I do have betta fish, I do have axolotls, I do have my African fat-tailed gecko, I do have my salamander. All of these things require different needs. Some of the animals do share some of the things, but other than that, I just kind of wish that everybody was a cat. Makes it a whole lot easier. All of you guys turn into cats. Because technically I first started with fostering cats, but I wouldn't say I got burnt out over that. I would say that I just kind of ran out of space to do that, especially with the amount of cats I have. But I've known people who have 7 foster cats and 7 cats of their own. So wow, hopefully that person isn't getting burnt out from that and does provide them a big amount of space so that they have time to enjoy them all and have time to help them out. Because I do want to still continue to do this, I gotta make sure that I can still at least come first, even though I always put animals before me. I need to realize I need a balance of it, because if I fall, everything else around me will fall and I may not recover from it. And my mission to rescue, rehabilitate, and rehome these animals may just be gone one day because I just felt so burnt out that I don't want to do it again. This is just a warning to you guys out there. Please make sure you're being responsible when taking in animals. Please be responsible about their care as well. Thank you guys so much for listening to me talk about burnout and hearing my story. And make sure, guys, if you want to follow with any of my fosters, Instagram is the place to learn about currently what's happening. YouTube, comes last. And if you're new here and would like to become a part of the Munchie family, please subscribe. And leave comments down below about what I discussed in the video here if you've been feeling a burnout or know somebody who has, and or have done things to prevent yourself from becoming burnt out in your pet keeping. So thanks everybody, and like the video if you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next Munchie Talk discussion. Bye bye!